The story begins in Central City, a place marked by struggle, hardship, and the weight of financial difficulties. Here, we meet Malik Carter, a 12-year-old boy who embodies resilience and determination despite the tough circumstances surrounding him. His family's situation is dire. His father, Raymond, was once the strong provider for the family but is now incapacitated by a stroke, leaving him unable to work. This devastating change has left Malik's mother, Vanessa, to shoulder the responsibility of the household. She works tirelessly long shifts at Lola's diner, trying to stretch her income and keep the family afloat. Through Malik's eyes, we see the toll this takes on his mother, her exhaustion, the emotional strain, and the mounting pile of unpaid bills that symbolize their mounting struggles. Malik, though only 12, is acutely aware of the burdens his mother carries. His youth does not shield him from the financial pressures or the emotional toll they take on his family. The unpaid bills, his mother's tired smile, and the quiet, anxious conversations at night reveal the cracks in the facade of their life. He notices every small detail, the weariness in his mother's eyes and the growing pile of bills on the kitchen table. Despite his youth, he senses the looming threat of their financial collapse, and it ignites in him a deep desire to help. The understanding that his family cannot continue to live this way becomes his motivation. At 12, there is little that Malik can do in terms of providing for his family, but he is determined to try. He searches for work, visiting local stores and gas stations, but being too young for most jobs, his attempts are repeatedly rejected. This sense of rejection and frustration is not foreign to many young people in poverty-stricken neighborhoods, where age and opportunity collide in the harshest ways. However, Malik's persistence pays off when he spots a "Help Wanted" sign outside Lincoln Trust Bank. The idea of working at such an impressive, well-maintained place, symbolizing wealth and success, is far beyond the scope of Malik's everyday life. But the glimmer of hope sparks his resolve. When he approaches the bank, Malik's demeanor is humble and determined. He asks Mr. Thompson, the manager, for a chance to work, offering to clean in exchange for a job. Mr. Thompson, a thin gray-haired man who barely acknowledges Malik, ultimately agrees to give him a shot on the condition that he works the night shift. Malik's quick response, his earnestness, and his heart pounding with relief speak volumes about the importance of this moment to him. Though the job itself is menial, sweeping floors, emptying trash, and wiping desks, it represents a step forward in Malik's quest to ease his mother's burden. It's not just a job, it's a lifeline for a family struggling to survive. This initial glimpse of Malik's determination paints him as a character driven by a deep love for his family. He doesn't wait for an opportunity to be handed to him, instead, he creates his own opportunities. This desire to help his family despite his youth demonstrates his maturity and resourcefulness, two qualities that will become crucial as the story unfolds. In the quiet of the night shift, Malik works hard, understanding the gravity of every hour he spends cleaning the bank. The satisfaction of contributing, even in small ways, offers him a sense of purpose in a world that often seems indifferent to his struggles. In this first part, we see Malik's resolve, his understanding of his family's hardship, and his determination to make a difference. His journey begins with small steps, but his efforts lay the groundwork for the hero he will become. Malik's life had changed after securing the night shift job at Lincoln Trust Bank, but he never imagined how drastically his world would shift in the coming days. The first few weeks were uneventful. Malik spent his nights sweeping floors, emptying trash bins, and performing other small tasks around the bank. The quiet, solitary nights gave him time to think about his family's struggles. He would often look at the bills his mother tried to hide, wondering how he could do more to ease her burdens. Each dollar he earned felt like a small victory, even if it wasn't much. He was proud of the work, and even though it was exhausting, it brought him a sense of purpose and pride. But things took an unexpected turn one fateful afternoon when Malik started his shift. The usual calm atmosphere of the bank was soon shattered by a series of heavy footsteps, each echoing louder as they drew nearer to the lobby. Malik was pushing a mop near the supply closet when he heard the door crash open, followed by the sharp sound of a gunshot. 6 masked men, led by a towering figure named Carson Hayes, stormed into the bank. Their rifles were raised menacingly, and the tension in the air was thick with fear. Carson barked commands, ordering everyone in sight to get down, and shot into the ceiling to assert his authority. Shards of plaster rained down on the floor as customers screamed, ducking for cover. Malik's heart raced. He was terrified, but his instincts kicked in. His first thought was to hide. He slipped into the supply closet and crouched low, trying to make himself invisible. He could hear the robbers shouting at the employees and customers, demanding money. Panic ensued. Malik's mind raced as he peered through the narrow gap in the closet door, watching the chaos unfold. From his hiding place, Malik saw one of the robbers point a rifle at an elderly woman, Mrs. Evelyn Morris, who was clutching her purse in fear. Carson shouted that they were there for a government ransom, not for the money in people's wallets. But his words fell on deaf ears. The threat of violence was enough to paralyze everyone in the room. Malik knew he had to do something. He couldn't just sit by and let people get hurt. He remembered earlier seeing FBI agents in the bank for routine security checks. If anyone could help, it was them. Malik's mind raced as he thought through his options. He had no weapons, no physical strength to take on the robbers, but his quick thinking could still make a difference. He silently slipped from the supply closet and, with stealth, navigated through the building. His breath was shallow as he crept past the robbers, heart pounding in his chest. He finally found the FBI agents, bound and gagged in a small office. He quickly freed them, signaling for them to stay quiet. With his hands shaking but his resolve strong, Malik gestured for one agent to call for backup, which they did immediately. Realizing that time was running out, Malik knew he needed to act fast. He had to create a distraction. He triggered the bank's alarm system, setting off sirens that disoriented the robbers and sent them into a frenzy. It was the chaos he needed. Malik caused further disarray by knocking over a stack of files, sending papers scattering across the floor, adding to the confusion. The FBI agents sprang into action, tackling several robbers and using the chaos to their advantage. Malik, however, wasn't out of danger yet. He had been spotted by one of the robbers, Carson Hayes, who grabbed him with force, pressing a gun to his forehead. In that moment, Malik felt a mixture of fear and determination. This was the moment that would define everything. The gun was cold against Malik's forehead, and his heart was pounding in his chest. Carson Hayes, the leader of the robbers, sneered down at him with malicious intent. "Well, look what we have here," Carson said, his voice dripping with disdain. "A little hero trying to be the big man." Malik could feel the weight of the gun pressing against his skin, and yet he stood his ground, his eyes locking with Carson's. He was terrified, yes, but his determination to protect others pushed him forward. "I didn't want to hurt anyone," Malik said, his voice steady despite the fear running through him. He spoke with a confidence that even surprised himself. "But if you hurt me, the FBI will catch you. You won't make it out of here." Carson hesitated. It was a brief moment, but it was enough for Malik to notice. The tension in the air thickened, and for a moment, Malik thought he might actually convince the robber to let him go. His words weren't just a plea, they were a challenge, a gamble that Carson might believe that Malik knew something he didn't. The hesitation was enough. It distracted Carson for just a second, enough for one of the FBI agents to take action. The agent, who had managed to regain some control of the situation, fired a well-aimed shot at Carson's shoulder. The sound of the bullet piercing the air was followed by Carson's sharp cry of pain as his gun flew out of his hand and skidded across the floor. Carson fell back, clutching his shoulder, his grip loosening on Malik. In that split second, everything changed. The FBI agents surged forward, restraining the remaining robbers and gaining the upper hand. Malik, in a mix of shock and relief, collapsed to the ground. He was exhausted, his heart still racing from the adrenaline, but he felt a profound sense of accomplishment. It was over. The chaos, the fear, the danger, it had all come to an end because of his actions. As the officers restrained the robbers and secured the building, Malik looked up to find Mrs. Evelyn Morris approaching him, her hands trembling as she knelt beside him. Her eyes were filled with gratitude. "You're a hero," she said softly, her voice shaking. "You saved us." Malik barely heard her words. He was still trying to process everything that had just happened. His legs felt weak, his body drained of energy. But as the sirens blared outside and the chaos of the robbery receded, a sense of calm washed over him. He had done something right, something he could be proud of. He hadn't just hidden, he had acted, and it had made all the difference. As the police began to clear the building, Malik's mind continued to spin. He couldn't shake the images of the robbers, of Carson's malicious sneer, or of the way everything had unfolded in such a chaotic blur. But amid all of the confusion, there was a sense of clarity that settled in. Malik had made a difference. His courage had saved lives, and that realization began to sink in as the reality of the situation slowly settled. The next morning, everything changed again. The actions of the previous day would have far-reaching consequences, but Malik had no idea how drastically his life would be altered by a single act of bravery. The morning after the robbery, Malik woke up in his small, humble home, his body sore from the stress of the previous day's events. The early sunlight streamed through the window, casting a soft glow on his surroundings. He was still trying to process everything that had happened. The bank, the robbers, the gunshot, and, most of all, the fact that he had been the one to stop them. It all felt surreal, like a dream he had yet to wake up from. As he sat up in bed, stretching and trying to shake off the heaviness that still clung to his mind, his mother, Vanessa, called to him from the kitchen. "Malik, come down here. You have some visitors." Malik's stomach tightened. He had no idea who could be visiting at this hour, but he knew it couldn't be anything good. He had just witnessed a robbery, and the last thing he wanted was attention from the police or anyone else. He dressed quickly and headed downstairs, hoping for some peace. When he entered the living room, his eyes widened in disbelief. Standing before him was Richard Morris, the owner of United Trust Bank, holding a stack of official-looking papers. Richard was a well-dressed man, his presence commanding and calm, though his eyes were filled with something else, something that looked like gratitude. "Malik Carter," Richard said, his voice steady yet warm. "You saved lives yesterday. I wanted to personally thank you for your bravery." Malik stood there in shock, unable to respond at first. He wasn't used to attention, especially not from someone like Richard Morris. The idea that his actions had been so significant, that they had mattered in such a profound way, was overwhelming. Richard continued, handing Malik the stack of papers. "These are documents granting your family a mortgage-free home," he said with a smile. "You and your mother will no longer have to struggle financially. Your courage saved innocent lives, and now we want to make sure you don't have to worry about yours." Malik felt the room spin. The words didn't fully register in his mind at first, but the meaning began to sink in. His family was about to be given a chance at a better life, a chance to escape the struggles that had defined them for so long. His heart raced as emotions overwhelmed him, but he still couldn't find the words to thank Richard properly. Instead, all he could do was stare at the documents in his hands, his chest tight with emotion. Richard's eyes softened as he placed a hand on Malik's shoulder. "Your courage deserves more than words. It deserves a future. I hope this helps." As Richard left, Malik stood frozen in the middle of the room, the weight of what had just happened settling on him. The life he had known, the struggle to survive, was slipping away, replaced with something new, a chance at a future he never thought possible. Later that day, Malik found his mother in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared dinner. She looked up at him, a tired but contented smile on her face. For the first time, Malik felt as though the weight of their struggles had been lifted. His mother would no longer have to work endlessly to provide for their family. Their future was brighter, and Malik couldn't wait to show her the papers. As evening fell, Malik sat down outside, taking in the quiet calm that surrounded him. The neighborhood felt different, somehow, lighter. He couldn't explain it, but the burden that had weighed on his family for so long had been lifted. Malik had acted out of instinct, out of love for his family, and now his bravery had not only saved lives but had also changed his own. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, he felt like it was a road worth traveling. The changes in Malik's life were profound. From a 12-year-old boy, struggling to help his family make ends meet, he had become a symbol of hope and courage. The mortgage-free home granted to Malik's family was just the beginning. The scholarship he received for college was a gift that Malik had never expected. In the span of one day, the trajectory of his life had shifted entirely. Malik and his parents moved into their new home, and it felt like a dream to Malik. The once dilapidated rental home, with peeling paint and cramped rooms, was replaced by a beautiful house that was theirs. The relief in his mother's eyes was undeniable. She no longer had to stay up late, worrying about bills. She could finally rest, and for the first time in years, there was a lightness in the air at home. The future felt possible. Marking this change wasn't just about the house. It was about the possibilities now open to them. Malik had never imagined being able to afford higher education. Growing up, college had seemed like a distant dream, something only other kids had the chance to experience. But now, it was a reality. The scholarship was a gateway to a future he had never allowed himself to dream of. He still hadn't fully processed the weight of it all. As Malik started his school year, he carried himself with a quiet confidence. He no longer had to worry about the same stresses. His new friend saw a boy who had overcome adversity, and though he never talked about his bravery at the bank, people began to look up to him for the strength and resilience he had shown. Still, Malik didn't seek the recognition or attention. It wasn't why he had acted the way he had. He had done it because it was right. He had done it because his family needed him, and he couldn't stand by and let innocent people be harmed. Malik's life may have changed, but the values that had shaped him, the love for his family, his determination, and his bravery, remained constant. The money, the home, the scholarship, it was all a bonus, but it wasn't the core of his identity. The core of Malik's identity was the boy who had acted when no one else could. And that, he knew, would carry him through whatever came next. As months passed, Malik adjusted to the new rhythms of his life. His family's new home had become a sanctuary, and the weight of financial struggle had been lifted. Still, the memories of the robbery at the bank remained vivid in his mind. Despite his newfound life, Malik couldn't forget the people he had saved, the lives he had touched, and the lessons he had learned from the experience. His school life improved too. No longer burdened by the constant worry about his family's survival, Malik found himself excelling academically. He no longer had to skip meals to make sure his parents could eat. He was able to focus on his studies, and for the first time, he enjoyed his lessons. Teachers noticed the change in him, his quiet determination, his willingness to help others. They knew there was something special about Malik. Yet, the praise and attention that Malik received never felt as important as the satisfaction of knowing he had made a difference. The quiet, humble way he carried himself, no longer burdened by survival, gave him a sense of peace. One afternoon, while walking home from school, Malik passed the bank where it had all happened. The sight of the building no longer made him anxious or afraid. Instead, he felt a sense of pride. He had faced the darkest moment of his life, and he had emerged stronger for it. As he gazed at the bank's grand entrance, he felt a sense of gratitude for the unexpected gift it had brought him, not just a new home, but the chance to dream, to aspire, to believe in a future where he and his family could thrive. Malik smiled to himself as he walked away from the building. He knew there were still challenges ahead, but for the first time, he truly believed he could face whatever came next. Life was no longer just about survival. It was about living. And Malik Carter was finally living. After the life-changing events that had turned Malik Carter's world upside down, life in Central City began to normalize. However, for Malik, the impact of his bravery in the bank robbery and the subsequent generosity of Richard Morris, the owner of United Trust Bank, continued to echo through his daily life. His new home was filled with an air of peace and opportunity, but beneath that surface, there was a profound shift occurring within Malik himself. The scholarship for college had opened a world of possibilities Malik had never dreamed of. With his newfound academic potential, he was no longer just a survivor of his circumstances, he was a young man with a future to build. His mother, Vanessa, who had spent years sacrificing her own health and happiness to provide for her family, had finally begun to breathe easier. No longer would she toil in the diner every night just to make ends meet. The relief in her eyes when she realized that her son's future was no longer bound by the same financial limitations was undeniable. But even more than that, she could rest easier knowing that Malik was no longer shouldering the burden of providing for the family. Though his parents had always made the best of their difficult situation, it had been clear that the weight of their financial instability had taken its toll. Malik had always been a perceptive child, keenly aware of the tension between his parents, his father, Raymond, struggling with the lingering effects of his stroke, and his mother, Vanessa, who had tried to balance multiple jobs to keep the family afloat. But now, things were different. Raymond, with his disability, could no longer carry the family's financial burdens, but his pride was still intact. With the mortgage-free home and the security of a scholarship for Malik, the pressure on his parents began to dissipate. For Malik, these changes were not simply about material wealth. What struck him most was the realization that his life, and the life of his family, had changed because he had acted without thinking of the consequences. He hadn't known that helping those around him would result in such a profound shift in his own fate. He had only done what felt right in the moment, protecting innocent people from harm. That had been his only concern. One afternoon, as Malik was walking home from school, he passed the familiar streets he had walked so many times before. The smell of fresh cut grass and the sound of children playing in the park reminded him of the simplicity of his previous life. But now, he looked at these streets with new eyes, eyes that saw possibilities. Life wasn't just about surviving. He was now a part of a community that was changing, one where people looked out for one another and where his actions, however small, had ripple effects. As Malik neared his house, he noticed something unusual. His neighbor, Mrs. Evelyn Morris, was sitting outside, waiting for him. Her eyes were full of warmth, a reflection of the gratitude she felt for him after the events at the bank. She had been one of the people Malik had saved that day, and she never let him forget it. As Malik approached, she greeted him with a smile. "Malik," she said, her voice filled with admiration, "I just wanted to thank you again. What you did that day was beyond words. You're a true hero." Malik smiled, but it was a humble smile. "I just did what anyone would have done," he replied modestly. Mrs. Morris, though, shook her head. "No, Malik. Not everyone would have done what you did. You acted when others were frozen in fear. You saved lives." The conversation was a reminder to Malik that, while he didn't seek recognition for his actions, others saw him in a different light. He wasn't just the boy from the neighborhood, he had become a symbol of hope. And though that carried its own weight, Malik knew it was a responsibility he was ready to shoulder. As time went on, Malik's new life continued to unfold in unexpected ways. He was adjusting well to school, excelling in his classes, and making new friends who respected him not just for his bravery but for his intelligence and kindness. Despite the many accolades he received for his heroic actions, Malik remained focused on his goal, helping his family and securing a better future for them. One afternoon, as Malik sat in the park, reflecting on his life, he was approached by James and David, the two men he had helped during the bank robbery. They had become good friends of Malik, both expressing their deep gratitude for his bravery. The bond between them had been forged in a moment of danger, and it was something that would remain with them for the rest of their lives. James, the taller of the two, offered Malik a beer, which he gladly accepted. "You know, Malik," he began, his voice thoughtful, "we'll never be able to repay you for what you did. You saved our lives, man. David nodded in agreement, his face serious. Yeah, and we've been talking about how we can help you out. You deserve more than what you got from the bank. You deserve the world, kid. Malik shook his head, not wanting to take credit for something he felt was just the right thing to do. I didn't do it for a reward, he replied. I just wanted to help. The three sat in comfortable silence for a moment before James broke the quiet. Well, Malik, he said, we were thinking, maybe we could all start a project. Something to give back to the community. You've done enough, but we want to keep the momentum going. Let's start a charity or something. We could help kids in our neighborhood who don't have the chances we've had. Malik's heart warmed at the thought. It was a simple idea, but it carried a lot of meaning. This wasn't about gaining recognition or fame, it was about making a real impact on the lives of those around them. I think that's a great idea, Malik said, a smile spreading across his face. We could do something together. And maybe we can start with helping kids get scholarships, like the one I got. That way, they can have a chance at a better future too. As the sun began to set, Malik, James, and David talked about their plans for the future. The idea of giving back to the community brought them all closer together, and Malik realized that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. The generosity he had received had sparked something inside him, a desire to make the world a better place for others, just as it had been made better for him. Weeks turned into months, and the initial excitement of the changes in Malik's life began to settle into a steady, fulfilling routine. His family was thriving in their new home, and Malik's scholarship was opening doors he never imagined possible. He had grown closer to his friends, and the idea of starting a charity was slowly gaining traction. But despite everything, Malik never lost sight of the importance of his family and the values that had shaped him. One afternoon, as Malik was finishing up his homework, his phone rang. It was Mrs. Evelyn Morris, who had become a close family friend since the bank robbery. Malik, she said, I have some exciting news. Richard Morris, the man who helped your family, is throwing a community event next weekend. He wants you to be the guest of honor. Malik was stunned. Guest of honor, he repeated, not sure if he heard her correctly. Yes. Evelyn's voice was filled with excitement. He's organizing a celebration for the whole neighborhood. It's his way of thanking everyone for coming together after the robbery, and he wants you to share your story. It's going to be a big deal, Malik. Malik's mind raced. He hadn't expected this kind of recognition. He didn't seek attention for his actions, but this was an opportunity to share his story and inspire others. It was a chance to show that, even in the face of adversity, one person could make a difference. I don't know if I'm ready for that, Malik said, his voice uncertain. Evelyn chuckled. Trust me, Malik. The neighborhood already looks up to you. You've become a symbol of hope. This is your time to shine. Despite his hesitation, Malik knew that this event was important. It wasn't about him, it was about showing others that courage, kindness, and perseverance could change lives. He agreed to attend, knowing that his journey wasn't just about his own future but about giving back to the community that had supported him. As he hung up the phone, Malik looked out the window, reflecting on how far he had come. It had been a journey filled with unexpected twists, but one thing was clear, his actions had changed everything. Now, it was time to pay it forward.